Weybridge, Surrey, England, March 1942. Barnes Wallis stares at the model in his water tank for the 47th time, watching the cylindrical bomb skip across the surface like a stone thrown by a child. His colleagues think he's lost his mind. Perhaps he has. For 6 months, he's been trying to solve an impossible problem: how to destroy Germany's hydroelectric dams with existing technology when every military expert says it cannot be done. The dams, the Möhne, the Eder, the Sorp, are engineering marvels of the Ruhr Valley, providing water and power to Germany's industrial heartland. Intelligence estimates suggest that destroying them could cripple German steel production, flood armament factories, and potentially shorten the war by months. But these structures are massive, reinforced concrete barriers designed to withstand enormous hydrostatic pressure. Conventional bombing from altitude is useless. The bombs miss or bounce off or cause superficial damage. Wallis, a 54-year-old aeronautical engineer who designed the geodetic framework for the Wellington bomber, has calculated that only a massive explosion against the dam's underwater face, where water pressure magnifies the blast effect, can generate enough force to breach the structure. But this creates an impossible delivery problem. Torpedoes won't work. The Germans have installed anti-torpedo nets. High-altitude bombing lacks accuracy. Low-altitude bombing means the aircraft would be destroyed by its own bomb's blast. The solution Wallis proposes sounds like something from a Jules Verne novel: a cylindrical bomb that spins backwards at 500 revolutions per minute, dropped from exactly 60 feet altitude at exactly 240 miles per hour, which will skip across the water surface like a stone, clear the anti-torpedo nets, strike the dam wall, sink while maintaining contact with the structure, and detonate at a precise depth of 30 feet underwater. When he first presents this idea to the Ministry of Aircraft Production in April 1942, the response is polite dismissal. Professor Patrick Blackett, scientific advisor to the Admiralty, states in a memo, "The concept is theoretically interesting but practically unfeasible. The precision required for altitude, speed, distance, and spin rate exceeds operational capabilities. The probability of success is negligible." Air Marshal Arthur Harris, head of Bomber Command, is less diplomatic. Harris believes in carpet bombing, overwhelming Germany with massive raids on cities and industrial areas. He views specialized missions as wasteful distractions from his strategic bombing campaign. When presented with Wallis's proposal, Harris reportedly says, "This is tripe, dingbat, an engineer's fantasy that will waste aircraft, crews, and time we cannot spare." But Wallis is accustomed to skepticism. His entire career has involved proving that impossible things are merely difficult. He persists. The physics problem. What Wallis understands, and what his critics initially fail to grasp, is that this isn't just about dropping a bomb. It's about exploiting fundamental principles of physics and engineering that conventional military thinking ignores. A dam's structural integrity depends on its mass and the water pressure it contains. The thickest part of a gravity dam is at the base, where water pressure is greatest. Conventional aerial bombs striking the top of the dam hit the strongest part and cause minimal damage. Even direct hits with 1,000-pound bombs have negligible effect. But underwater explosions behave differently. When a bomb detonates underwater in contact with a solid structure, the explosion creates a shockwave that cannot dissipate through compression, water being incompressible. The energy reflects between the water surface and the structure, creating a phenomenon called bubble pulse, multiple shock waves that hammer the target. Against a dam wall, this creates stress fractures that propagate through the entire structure. The problem is delivery. Torpedoes would work theoretically, but the Germans have suspended steel nets 150 feet in front of the dam faces specifically to stop torpedoes. The nets extend from the water surface to the lake bottom, creating an impassable barrier. Wallis's solution exploits a principle every child knows: stones skip on water. A sphere or cylinder with sufficient forward velocity and backspin will bounce across a water surface. With the right spin rate, the bomb will maintain stability. With the right approach angle, it will clear the torpedo nets. With the right size and weight, it will sink exactly where needed. The mathematics are precise. Wallis fills notebook after notebook with calculations. Bomb weight, 9,250 pounds, including 6,600 pounds of Torpex explosive. Cylinder diameter, 50 inches. Length, 60 inches. Backspin rate, 500 revolutions per minute. Release altitude, 60 feet above water. Release speed, 240 miles per hour. Release distance, 425 yards from target. Detonation depth, 30 feet underwater. Every variable is critical. Too high and the bomb breaks apart on water impact. Too low and the aircraft crashes. Too fast and the bomb skips over the dam. Too slow and it sinks before reaching the wall. Wrong spin rate and it becomes unstable. Wrong distance and it misses the target entirely. When Wallis presents these calculations to the Admiralty's scientific advisors, they acknowledge the physics are sound. But they insist the operational requirements are impossible. No bomber crew can maintain exactly 60 feet altitude at night over water while flying at 240 miles per hour toward a defended target. No bombardier can judge distance to within the required tolerance. No aircraft can carry a 9,250-pound cylindrical bomb while maintaining the necessary speed and altitude. Wallis goes back to his drawing board. The breakthrough. What changes the official attitude isn't Wallis's persistence, it's desperation. By February 1943, the war is going badly. The Battle of the Atlantic is killing British shipping faster than replacements can be built. German industrial production continues to increase despite bombing raids. The Soviet Union is screaming for a second front, but Britain lacks the forces for a European invasion. Churchill and his war cabinet are looking for any weapon, any strategy that might shift momentum. Wing Commander Charles Whitworth, Wallis's friend at the Admiralty, arranges a demonstration for Admiral John Tovey and other senior naval officers. In a testing tank at the Road Research Laboratory, Wallis demonstrates the skipping bomb principle using a scaled model. The model works perfectly. The cylinder skips across the water, clears a miniature net, strikes the target, and sinks while maintaining contact with the wall. Admiral Tovey watches 3 successful demonstrations, then asks the critical question, "Mr. Wallis, can you build a full-scale version? Can you build it in time to use it this year when the reservoirs are full? Give me 4 months and the resources, Admiral, and I'll give you a weapon that can break any dam in Germany." On February 26, 1943, Air Marshal Portal, Chief of the Air Staff, overrules Harris's objections and authorizes Wallis to proceed. The project receives highest priority classification. Wallis has until May, when reservoir levels are highest, to design the bomb, solve the delivery problems, and prepare for operations. He has 10 weeks. Engineering the impossible. The first problem is the bomb casing itself. A 50-inch diameter cylinder weighing 9,250 pounds that must withstand repeated water impacts at 240 miles per hour requires structural engineering beyond standard bomb design. Wallis works with Vickers Armstrong's fabrication teams, testing different steel alloys and thickness ratios. The casing must be strong enough to survive impact but thin enough to allow maximum explosive content. After dozens of drop tests at the Ashley Walk bombing range, they settle on a design using curved steel plates welded into a drum configuration with internal reinforcing hoops. The second problem is the spin mechanism. The bomb must rotate backwards at 500 revolutions per minute when released. This requires a belt-driven system powered by the aircraft's engines, connected to the bomb through a hydraulic motor. Wallis collaborates with engineers at Avro, the Lancaster bomber manufacturer, to design a mounting system where the bomb sits in a modified bomb bay with a motorized belt drive that spins it before release. The mechanism is tested repeatedly. The belt must release cleanly at the moment of bomb drop, or it will tear apart and potentially damage the aircraft. After multiple failures, they develop a quick-release coupling that disengages automatically when the bomb falls. The third problem is delivery accuracy. Flying at exactly 60 feet altitude at night over water is extraordinarily dangerous. Too low and the aircraft hits the water. But altitude measurement using standard altimeters is imprecise at low levels. The solution comes from Benjamin Lochspizer, Director of Scientific Research at the Ministry of Aircraft Production. He suggests using spotlights. 2 Aldis lamps are mounted on the aircraft, one in the nose, one under the rear fuselage, angled so their beams converge at exactly 60 feet below the aircraft. When the pilot sees the 2 light spots merge into a figure-8 pattern on the water surface, he's at the correct altitude. For distance measurement, Wallis works with Wing Commander Dan Walker to develop a simple triangular wooden sight that the bomb aimer holds up to his eye. When 2 stakes on the sight line up with the dam's towers, the aircraft is exactly 425 yards away, the correct release point. These are brilliantly simple solutions to complex problems. No electronic equipment, no complicated instruments, just spotlights and a wooden triangle. They work because Wallis understands that reliability in combat requires simplicity. The Squadron. On March 21, 1943, the Air Ministry creates a new squadron specifically for this mission, 617 Squadron, RAF. Command is given to 24-year-old Wing Commander Guy Gibson, already a decorated pilot with 3 tours of operations completed. Gibson is told only that his squadron will conduct a special low-level raid requiring precision flying under extremely hazardous conditions. He's authorized to select crews from across Bomber Command, choosing the best pilots, navigators, bomb aimers, flight engineers, wireless operators, and gunners he can find. He selects 21 Lancaster bomber crews, 147 men total. They begin intensive training at Scampton Air Base in Lincolnshire, flying low-level missions over reservoirs and lakes, practicing precision altitude control and navigation at extremely low heights. The crews are not initially told their target or the nature of their weapon. They practice flying at 60 feet altitude night after night, using the Spotlight altimeter system. They practice maintaining exactly 240 miles per hour while navigating around obstacles. They practice precision timing and coordination. The training is dangerous. Low-level flying at night kills crews regularly. On April 16th, a Lancaster piloted by Flight Lieutenant Hopgood, who had been briefed on the operation, crashes during a practice run, killing the flight engineer. The crew survives, shaken but determined. Gibson drives his crews relentlessly. They fly practice missions over the Derwent Valley Reservoir, which has towers similar to the German dams. They practice until the Spotlight altitude technique becomes second nature, until they can maintain 60 feet in complete darkness, until navigation and timing are precise to within seconds. Meanwhile, at Vickers Armstrong, Wallis supervises fabrication of the first production bombs, codenamed Upkeep. Each bomb requires precise machining and careful filling with 6,600 pounds of Torpex high explosive. The Torpex is poured in liquid form, then allowed to set. Each bomb takes days to manufacture. By early May, only 19 Upkeep bombs are ready. There are no spares for testing or training. Every bomb will be needed for the operation. The briefing. May 15, 1943, 6 p.m. Scampton Air Base briefing room. For the first time, the crews of 617 Squadron learn their actual target. A large curtain is pulled back, revealing detailed models of the Moan, Eder, and Sorp dams. Gibson steps forward. Gentlemen, you've been training for 2 months without knowing why. Tonight you'll find out. Your targets are 3 dams in the Ruhr Valley. These dams provide water and hydroelectric power to Germany's industrial heartland. Intelligence estimates that destroying them will flood factories, disrupt steel production, and potentially shorten the war. He pauses, letting this sink in. The weapon you'll carry was designed by Barnes Wallis. It's a 9,000-pound cylindrical bomb that skips across the water surface to clear the torpedo nets, then sinks against the dam wall and explodes underwater. Each bomb will be spinning at 500 revolutions per minute when you release it. Murmurs ripple through the assembled crews. Some are excited. Others are apprehensive. Everyone understands this is extraordinarily dangerous. Wallis himself is present. He explains the bomb's physics, the precision required, the delivery procedure. He shows film of test drops. The crews watch the cylinder skip across water, exactly as described. Flight Lieutenant Hoppy Hopgood, whose crew had crashed during training, asks the critical question, "Mr. Wallis, what are our chances?" Wallis is silent for a moment. He's a scientist, not a military officer. He understands probability. "The weapon will work," he says quietly. "I've tested it dozens of times. But the delivery, the defenses, I cannot calculate those odds. I can only tell you that if you deliver the weapon correctly, it will breach the dam." Group Captain Whitworth, the base commander, provides the tactical briefing. The squadron will attack in 3 waves. Formation 1, 9 aircraft led by Gibson, targeting the Moan Dam first, then proceeding to the Eder if successful. Formation 2, 5 aircraft following a different route, targeting the Sorp Dam, which has different construction and will require a different attack approach. Formation 3, 5 aircraft airborne reserve, to be directed by radio to targets as needed. Expected defenses include flak guns, searchlights, and possibly night fighters. The flight will be low-level throughout, too low for German radar to track effectively, but also too low for crews to bail out if hit. Intelligence estimates expect losses of 50% or higher. Gibson looks at his crews. Many are teenagers. His own bomb aimer, Spafford, is 22. "Gentlemen, this is a volunteer mission. If anyone wishes to stand down, there's no dishonor. You've all completed full tours. No one will question your courage. No one stands down." The raid, May 16th to 17th, 1943. At 9:39 p.m., the first Lancaster thunders down Scampton's runway, its upkeep bomb spinning in the modified bomb bay. Gibson is airborne, heading for Germany. By 10 p.m., all three formations are airborne, 19 Lancasters carrying the most unusual weapon in RAF history. The flight plan routes them across the North Sea at wave-top height to avoid radar, then across occupied Holland, skirting known flak concentrations, threading between German night fighter bases. Navigation is by dead reckoning and visual landmarks identified in moonlight. At 12:15 a.m. hours on May 17th, Gibson's formation approaches the Moan Dam. The reservoir glitters in moonlight. The dam is a massive concrete wall, 130 feet high and 112 feet thick at its base, holding back 140 million tons of water. Flak guns open fire immediately. Tracers arc across the valley. Gibson begins his attack run. His Lancaster drops to exactly 60 feet, the spotlight altimeters showing perfect height. Flight engineer Pulford calls out speed, 240 miles per hour, steady, holding 240. Bomb aimer Spafford lies prone in the nose, peering through his wooden sight. Let the steady. Gibson holds the aircraft perfectly level, 60 feet above water, racing toward the dam at 240 miles per hour while flak shells explode around him. Wallace's calculations allow no margin for error. Target ahead, bomb gone. The upkeep drops away, spinning backwards at 500 revolutions per minute. It hits the water and bounces, once, twice, 3 times, skipping across the surface like a stone. It clears the torpedo nets and strikes the dam face exactly as designed, then sinks while maintaining contact with the wall. Gibson pulls up hard, clearing the dam by feet. Behind him, 30 seconds later, the hydrostatic fuse detonates 6,600 pounds of Torpex 30 feet underwater against the dam's face. The explosion creates a massive water column visible for miles. The shock wave radiates through the dam structure. But when the water settles, the dam holds. One bomb isn't enough. Gibson circles, drawing flak fire away from the second aircraft. Flight Lieutenant Hopgood begins his run. Hopgood's Lancaster is hit by flak just before bomb release. Fuel tanks erupt in flames, but Hopgood holds the aircraft steady long enough for his bomb aimer to release. The upkeep drops, but the damaged aircraft is off altitude. The bomb bounces over the dam and explodes on the power station beyond, destroying it but not breaching the dam. Hopgood's burning Lancaster climbs desperately, trying to gain altitude for the crew to bail out. At 300 feet, the aircraft explodes. Only 2 crew members escape. Hopgood dies. Flight Lieutenant McMartin attacks next. His bomb also fails to breach the dam. Whether it bounced over or fell short isn't clear in the chaos of explosions and flak fire. Young Flight Lieutenant Dingy Young attacks fourth. His bomb strikes perfectly, detonating against the dam face. Still the structure holds. Squadron Leader Melvin Ding Young, nicknamed for twice ditching in the ocean and surviving, makes the fourth attack. His upkeep skips perfectly, strikes the dam, sinks, and detonates. The dam shudders but remains intact. Gibson radios, "Keep attacking. We need to crack this wall." Flight Lieutenant Dave Maltby begins his run. By now the German gunners have the range perfected. Flak explosions bracket Maltby's aircraft, but he holds steady. His bomb aimer releases at the precise moment. The upkeep skips, strikes, sinks. The explosion is massive. For several seconds, nothing happens. Then, in the moonlight, water begins pouring through a crack in the dam's face. The crack widens. Suddenly, with a roar heard over the aircraft engines, a section of the dam 100 feet wide collapses. 140 million tons of water begin pouring through the breach. Gibson circles overhead, watching the flood surge down the valley. Nigger, he radios, using the name of his deceased dog, which is the code word for Moan Dam breached. Repeat, nigger. At Scampton, Air Vice Marshal Cochrane receives the signal. The first dam is down. Gibson leads his remaining aircraft to the secondary target, the Eder Dam, 40 miles southeast. The Eder is even larger than the Moan, holding 202 million tons of water. But unlike the Moan, it has no flak defenses. The Germans considered it too difficult to attack because of surrounding terrain. They're correct. The Eder sits in a narrow valley surrounded by hills. The attack approach requires diving into the valley, dropping to 60 feet above the reservoir, releasing the bomb, then pulling up sharply to avoid crashing into the hillside beyond. Squadron leader Henry Maudslay makes the first attempt. His Lancaster screams down into the valley, levels at 60 feet, releases, But the bomb hits the dam parapet and explodes prematurely. The blast damages Maudslay's aircraft. He crashes on the return flight. His entire crew is killed. Flight Lieutenant Dave Shannon attacks. His bomb undershoots, exploding short of the dam. Only one upkeep remains in Gibson's formation. Flight Lieutenant Les Knight begins his attack run. Knight dives into the valley, levels out perfectly at 60 feet, holds 240 miles per hour precisely, releases at exactly the right distance. The bomb skips cleanly, strikes the dam face, sinks. The underwater explosion creates another massive water column. When it subsides, water is pouring through cracks in the Eder Dam's face. Seconds later, the center section collapses. 202 million tons of water surge down the valley toward Castle. Dingy, Gibson radios. Code word for Eder breached. The third target, the Sorp Dam, has different construction, an earthen dam with a concrete core rather than a solid concrete gravity dam. The bouncing bomb technique won't work against it. Instead, aircraft must fly along the length of the dam and drop their bombs directly onto the crest, hoping to crack the concrete core. Formation 2, led by Flight Lieutenant Joe McCarthy, attacks the Sorp using this technique. Despite multiple attacks, they only manage to create a small crater in the dam's crest. The structure holds. Of the 19 Lancasters that took off, only 11 returned to Scampton. 8 aircraft are lost, 53 crew members killed or captured. But 2 of the 3 primary dams are destroyed. The flood from the Moan and Eder dams is catastrophic. Water surges down the Roer and Eder valleys at speeds exceeding 20 feet per second, creating waves 25 feet high. Entire villages are swept away. Factories are inundated. Roads and railways are destroyed. Bridges collapse. Power stations are knocked offline. At least 1,600 people are killed, including prisoners of war and forced laborers in the flood path. German emergency services work frantically to rescue survivors and restore infrastructure. Albert Speer, Minister of Armaments, immediately redirects resources to dam reconstruction. Thousands of workers, many brought from Atlantic Wall construction, are assigned to repairs. The Moan Dam is temporarily repaired within days using rubble and timber. Full reconstruction takes months. The Eder takes even longer. German industrial production in the Ruhr temporarily drops by approximately 20%. In Britain, the raid is celebrated as a tremendous victory. Gibson and his surviving crews are national heroes. Gibson receives the Victoria Cross. Every surviving crew member is decorated. Barnes Wallis, watching newsreel footage of the flood damage, weeps. He's a gentleman who designed the weapon to shorten the war, not to kill civilians. When someone congratulates him, he responds, "I feel I've been party to slaughter of innocent people. Many will have died who had nothing to do with this war." But the strategic impact is significant. The raid demonstrates that precision attacks using specialized weapons can achieve results that mass bombing cannot. It forces Germany to divert resources to dam defenses and reconstruction. It proves that British engineering and RAF skill can strike any target, no matter how well defended. Post-war analysis reveals more complex effects. Positive results. 2 major dams destroyed using only 19 aircraft. Temporary disruption to German industrial production. Massive psychological impact. Germans realized no target was safe. Forced diversion of resources to dam defense and repair. Demonstrated viability of precision special operations. Boosted British morale at critical period. Cost: 53 British aircrew killed, 3 captured. Approximately 1,600 civilians killed in flooding. 8 Lancaster bombers lost. Highly trained crews cannot be easily replaced. German industrial production recovered within 4 to 5 months. Strategic bombing advocates argued same resources in mass raids would have been more effective. Modern historians debate whether the operation was worth the cost. Some argue the tactical success didn't justify the losses. Others maintain that the psychological impact and demonstration of British capabilities made it strategically significant. What's undeniable is that Barnes Wallis proved his critics wrong. His ridiculous bouncing bomb worked exactly as designed. The skeptics who called it impossible were silenced by 342 million tons of water pouring through breached German dams. Legacy. Guy Gibson was killed in 1944 when his aircraft crashed returning from a raid. He was 26 years old. Barnes Wallis continued designing weapons and aircraft for decades. He developed the 12,000-pound Tallboy and 22,000-pound Grand Slam earthquake bombs that destroyed submarine pens, viaducts, and V-weapon sites. After the war, he pioneered variable geometry, swing-wing, aircraft design. He was knighted in 1968. 617 Squadron continues to exist in the RAF, maintaining the traditions established by the Dambusters. It has participated in every major British military operation since 1943. The bouncing bomb itself was never used again operationally. The specific conditions that made it necessary, massive concrete dams with anti-torpedo nets, were unique. But the principle of precision special operations using purpose-designed weapons influenced military thinking for generations. The Dambusters raid demonstrated that impossible-sounding ideas, when backed by rigorous engineering and executed by skilled crews, can achieve extraordinary results. Barnes Wallis's genius lay not just in understanding physics, but in refusing to accept that "it can't be done" meant it shouldn't be attempted. They laughed at his ridiculous bouncing bomb. They called it an engineer's fantasy, a waste of resources, operationally unfeasible. Until it destroyed 3 German dams in one night and changed warfare forever. The difference between fantasy and reality is often just the courage to calculate correctly and the determination to prove the skeptics wrong.